What's up, guys? It's Mitch here from thediyrecordingstudio.com. So it's now Monday, and most of you, like me, might have been going through a whole bunch of the Black Friday specials and looking at what deals were on for certain plugins. And it can be really confusing to figure out what you actually need to buy or if you need anything at all. And I actually debated with myself with whether or not I should do this video before the Black Friday specials or afterwards. Because if I did it before the Black Friday specials, it would maybe seem like I'm promoting these products. I'm not really in the business of pushing products onto people. It's not what I'm about on this channel. I really just want to offer advice and show what I like to use. So I basically thought that maybe it's better to do this video after Black Friday and just have a discussion with you guys about some of the things I think that every producer should have or every home studio engineer should have in their plugin collection, because we can all get a bit carried away with plugins and buying plugins, and I'm guilty of it as much as any of you. It's very easy to get caught up in that hype. So these are just some go-tos that every engineer should have in the industry, because if you watch this channel, you know my philosophy with plugins and audio equipment is just that these things are just tools. They're just tools we use every day, and if you know the right tools that you need at your disposal, then you'll realize you don't need 50 or 100 different plugins. You probably just need maybe 10 or 12. So let's dive into my short list of plugins that you might want to look at. And if you're not sure where to start, it's really, really simple. There are 3 main EQs and a few kinds of compressors that you're gonna want that have a sound or a flavor to them. There are the SSL, the API stuff, the API 550 and 560s, and the Neve 1073s. And what I'm showing here is the wave stuff, but you can buy these style plugins from any manufacturer. And you should be looking at these first because they're gonna give you that sound that you're maybe chasing, especially when it comes to things like rock music, pop, hip hop. These consoles, these original analog consoles, are part of that sound on those specific genres. And if you do your research, you'll know which ones your favorite producers are using, but you really can't go past having an SSL maybe as one of your first types of EQs. The API stuff is also great, and I myself love the sound of Neve 1073s and any kind of Neve EQ. They definitely have a nice character to them. So an SSL and a Neve 1073 style EQ, you definitely can't go past that. And there are many different versions. I'm not saying you should go for waves. They're just a very cheap option that you can buy outright without having to buy a subscription. The UAD Spark collection is great as well if you want to have a subscription and get all the bundles that they offer. And you might find that a subscription might suit you better because then you can trial things out. But the wave stuff is great and you can buy it once and never have to pay for it again. So it's a much cheaper option. That's just my opinion. Do whatever you like. And if you're looking for something maybe to have a certain flavor on your master bus, you can't go past a Pultec EQ either. That's an honorable mention I'd like to throw in there. And they're the 4 types of EQs that we use in this industry all the time for different applications. And if you have one of each of those plugins, you will be in good stead. That's all you're ever going to need. You're not going to need every Neve EQ or every type of SSL EQ. Just get one. Just get one that works for you and works for your budget, more importantly. So the same goes with compressors. If you are looking to get a certain type of sound, you're probably looking for a certain type of compressor. And there are a few main compressors we use every day in professional studios that are go-tos, and they're real pieces of analog gear. But if you don't have the analog gear, there are many, many, many software emulations of these vintage bits of hardware. And the first I would be looking at is something like the CLA bundle from maybe Waves, where they have the LA2A, the LA3A, and the 1176, both blue and black stripe. People have their favorite versions of these plugins, and you know, if you don't like Waves, that's okay. I don't mind. But they're great. They're a great price and a great introduction into how these compressors sound. And once again, if you are more into subscriptions, something like the UAD Spark would be another great option. And some people feel that these compressors sound a little better than the Waves ones, but you know, that's just a taste thing. So both are good in my opinion, and you can't go wrong with either. The next type of compressor you might want to look at is something like this, an SSL bus compressor. And this is used for things like drum buses and often is great on a mix bus. It's definitely got a sound that people use all the time. And then finally, the API 2500. Waves have one here in their API bundle, and UAD have their own version of the same compressor there. And it's also used as a bus compressor and is amazing on drums and on a whole bunch of other things. So great sounding compressor, very snappy, very punchy. So the compressors you should be looking to get are definitely an LA to A style compressor, a 1176 style compressor, maybe an LA3A if it's in the bundle that you're looking at, and then an SSL bus compressor and an API 2500 if that fits into your budget as well. So they're the main go-tos in our industry as far as compressors. And the reason why you should be looking at eventually purchasing these type of plugins is because, as I said earlier, they're the mainstays and they're the main character pieces that you'll find in a studio, and they will give you that sound that you're probably chasing, that analog, saturated, vibey sound. That's what they're going to give you, and that's the purpose of these bits of hardware emulation, is to give you that kind of vibe and that sound. Now, if vibe isn't your issue and you need maybe a compressor or an EQ that is linear and not going to add any character, then I've got a solution right here. The industry standard for that kind of stuff is Fabfilter. And if you want a clean, ultra diverse EQ you should be looking at, it's the standard go-to for clean, great sounding EQ that's very versatile with a bunch of other options. It's a real workhorse EQ, and I use it all the time. And you also can't go past their limiter, which is a mastering grade limiter. Lots of people use this for mastering, but you can also use it for mixing as well. And I use both the L2 and the Q3 all the time. Their other plugins are great too. You should definitely check them out if that's something you're looking for, something that's cleaner, more transparent, and not going to add too much character. They also have a bunch of saturation plugins, and I'm not going to go into all those because I don't think they're absolutely necessary. There's lots of different saturators out there now, so you can get saturation from lots of different things. And if you're looking to get some of the EQs and compressors that I mentioned earlier, those also saturate. That's their point. That's the purpose of those. So you might not need that. Now, once you've got your EQ and compression, the next thing you're going to need is a great sounding reverb. And I think there's one must-have go-to reverb, and it's really affordable for most beginner engineers, and that is the Valhalla reverb. And the one I'm talking about in particular is their vintage verb. Now, they have a bunch of different plugins here, but the vintage verb is based on a very famous studio quality reverb unit. And this reverb is amazing. So this is one to check out, and it's only $50. They also have a bunch of free plugins as well. You should definitely check those out, like the Supermassive, very cool stuff. And then the last one I'm going to mention is, say you've got all of your EQ and compression stuff sorted. The last thing you're going to need is some creative tools, some delays, some phasing effects, some flange, tremolo, maybe some saturation like I mentioned before. And there's one company that kind of covers these in a really no fuss way, and that's Soundtoys. I held out on getting Soundtoys plugins for the longest time, and I really wish I hadn't, because the moment I got these plugins, it really changed the way I approached creative things in mixing, because these plugins here just make it really easy. They're simple, and the go with them is you kind of just dial their sounds in and see what works. I really get why they call it Soundtoys, because it's just really simple, quick and easy to dial in cool and interesting things. I think you can't go past the Decapitator, which is an amazing saturation plugin. The Echo Boy is a really great delay. The other ones that I use a lot are the Micro Shift on vocals is amazing. It's just such a good effect. And I also use that on bass sometimes as well. And the Phase Mistress I've used a lot on current mixes. I love a lot of these plugins, in fact, you know, maybe you should just buy the bundle at that point. They're my go-tos. These plugins definitely just give you some really fun, creative tools to put those final touches on your mix and really get things sounding interesting. So, you know, if you combine all these plugins that I've mentioned here, you've got analog flavor and analog warmth and saturation. You've got clean, transparent compression and EQ if you need that as well. And then you've got a bunch of creative tools. And you could get a bunch of these plugins for a few $100s, you know, and I'm not saying go out and buy all of them, especially like all at once, but there's something to work towards there in building your set of tools that you're going to use in the studio every day. And these are bits of software that I do use every day. And I didn't go out and buy them all at once. So if you're new to plugins, I hope this has given you a guide on some of the things you should be looking for in your first setup. If you've got any questions, hit me up in the comment sections down below. But just remember, all of these bits of software, they're just tools. And what's more important is you learn how those tools work. Before you go buying all of these plugins, pick a few, learn how they work, really learn what an SSL is or what's great about the Fabfilter, all of that sort of stuff. You need to spend your time doing your research to learn about what the real hardware and then its software counterparts do and what they're all about. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed the video. If there's any questions, hit me up in the comment sections down below. And as always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I'm Mitch from thediyrecordingstudio.com. I'll catch you soon.